Christine Romans and Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He's former director for the Congressional Budget Office. Thanks to both of you. Christine, perhaps I could begin with you. This caught my eye today, poll in the Washington Post. When people were asked, will they get their jobs back, do they expect to, 77% answered yes, likely. Is that likely?
Oh, we certainly hope so, don't we? We know that a lot of those are furloughs and temporary layoffs, and we know that there are companies who have kept people on the books and are paying their health care as they go and get those federally enhanced unemployment benefits to tide them over. But the speed of this is just devastating. Let me show you this one picture of over a couple of months, 21.3 million jobs lost. That's over just 2 months. How does that compare with the Great Recession? It took months during the Great Recession to lose 8.7 million jobs. So this is already worse than anything any of us can remember. And this is 10 times the worst previous record for job loss. 20.5 million jobs lost in 1 month. Last time, September 1945 was the last record. That's when Japan surrendered and America shut down its big industrial war machine. So you're seeing the losses across the board here. Half of restaurant workers lost their jobs last month, half of them. And you saw jobless claims, jobless rates spike for women, people of color, and teenagers in particular.
Yeah. There you go, Christine. I mean, that is just so telling. And Douglas Holtz-Eakin, let's build on that, because the pain here, the economic pain, is not equally shared. It's just not. And you see it with African Americans at almost 70% unemployment and Hispanics at almost 19% in this report.
Yeah, there's no question about it. You see big jumps up to over 16% for blacks, so almost 19% for Hispanics. This is an enormous amount of pain, and we see it spread unequally across the economy. So hopefully the recovery will also be unequal, and we'll get those folks back to work first. I think, you know, this is just a staggering report, not unexpected, but trying to digest losses of this magnitude is really very hard. The one thing that stands out to me, and I want to echo something that Christina touched on, is in the report, of those 20.5 million lost jobs, over 18 were described as temporary layoffs. We want to make sure that turns out to be true, that we get enough support for the economy that those people can get back to work, and relatively quickly. That's the challenge now.
We're going to bring in John Harwood now at the White House for the Trump administration response to this. And John, consistently the president has said this will be a V-shaped recovery. Everything will bounce back very quickly. Does the White House have data to back that up, or is that the president cheerleading here?
Oh, I think it's mostly cheerleading. Nobody has data to back this up because we've never been in an experience like this before. What you saw from the president this morning when he was interviewed by Fox and Friends was a twofold response. One, to say it wasn't his fault. This was a deliberate shutdown of the economy. He said even the Democrats are not blaming me for these unemployment numbers. And the other, as you mentioned, was to cheerlead for a rapid turnaround. Take a listen.
We had the strongest economy in the history of the world, the strongest economy we've ever had, and we had to close it, which is artificial. We artificially closed it. Those jobs will all be back, and they'll be back very soon. And next year, we're going to have a phenomenal year. People are ready to go. We got to get it open. People, safely. People are ready to go.
So he says they'll be back very soon. Next year is going to be robust. I would point out that when I talked to Doug Holtz-Eakin last week, he said to me, Doug, you'll remember, this is not going to be a V. Let's face it, we've got to start preparing for what the new shape of the economy is going to be after this crisis passes.
Yeah, and Doug, to build on that, you ran the Congressional Budget Office, and on April 24th, the CBO just put out their, nonpartisan numbers, and they say unemployment, even at the end of next year, at the end of 2021, is going to be 9.5%. So they see something very different than what the president just promised the American people.
Yeah, I think that, most forecasters do see a return to growth in the second half of this year, and so that's a great piece of news, given that it's going to fall at essentially an annual rate of 40% in the second quarter. But that's not going to get us back to levels of economic activity that we had in January. It's not going to get us back to levels of employment that we had in January. That's a much harder task, and that's going to take well over a year to get accomplished.
Mm-hmm.